Welcome to today's Raised Hunting podcast because we couldn't come up with a more clever name than that. So there's what it is. But
How long are you going to make fun of the name of it?
every time, because you guys, I have like lots of people have written in and said, man, I love the fact that it's just the Raised Hunting podcast. I really do.
I would be willing to bet you haven't had one person say that.
So today, what we're going to be talking about is something that we don't know very much about. Because we just started in this venture, and no, I'm kidding. We do have a little bit of expertise on this. Today we're going to talk about scents and deer scents, and I don't mean sense like common sense. I mean sense as in the smell of something. But there's some things that go along with these scents, such as scrapes, rubs, limbs that all kinds of things that we wanted to kind of like squash some myths, I guess that they are, but also talk about some of them and things like that. So anyhow, that's what we're going to be doing. At the same time, this will help us give everyone a lot of information about the scents and why we chose to go down a road that is really a saturated market. I mean, when it comes to deer scents, go to Shields or one of your big chain places and just go look in the deer scent aisle and see how many things are out there. But in our opinion, the right thing isn't out there. It's not out there.
It is now.
It is now.
Saturated, but not with what we're doing.
Absolutely. And hence the reason that we went the way we went. So where do we want to start here?
Mock scrapes don't work, man.
Mock scrapes don't work.
At least that's the theory. That's what all sorts of people are saying.
This will be great then, because I can contest to that.
As far as mock scrapes don't work.
I've had times where I say mock scrapes don't work, yes. But I also
I
preface this with a couple things. One, the most prime example that I can give is Bullwinkle. When Bullwinkle was in Bullwinkle Bottom, you and Dakin went and put a mock scrape there. And I yelled at both of you for doing it. Well, it wasn't a mock scrape. You went and put it where he had been making that scrape the year before. And I told you guys you shouldn't have done that because he's so smart. I wanted to just completely leave him 100% unmolested and have no idea that there was anybody there. You guys went in there putting that scrape in there. And I told you he wouldn't be there. You guys said, yes, he will. And I said, no, he won't. And you said, yes, he will. And then Dakin said, anyways, on with the story. We get back from Montana, and he wasn't there. Now, I don't believe that the scents or what you guys did is why he wasn't there. The deer wasn't there yet. He wasn't living there. That wasn't his fall range that he was in there at. The other thing that I'll say is before I understood, Easton's actually brought to light to me a lot of this stuff. Before I understood scrapes, there was a couple scrapes that I had the deer were crushing, and then I went and put scents on them, and they dried up. Couldn't get a deer to hit them to save my life, and I was like, what the frick? I'm not messing with their scrapes ever again. And now that I understand what I do about scents, I had put entirely too much on there. So I went in there and I know all you guys out there can relate. You feel like you need to put 10 sprays on it.
If a little works, a lot will work better.
Yes, and so I think that I ruined their scrape because I went and just jammed a ton of scent on it. Also, those scents weren't exactly the same thing that we're using now, which could also have a big part of it, that there really wasn't any components in there that those deer were using for scrapes.
Well, let's
what you're using though is a majority urine and
right. Yes.
Well, let's back up a little bit though, because I think the one thing that we definitely want people to understand: raised scents work. I mean, I will be able to tell someone that already. I've already seen what they can do. However,
we've been testing them too.
Right.
It's not like
we didn't just start doing this. This has been about a 3-year process. However, they're not magical. They won't make deer come from nowhere. I mean, like, you're not going to suck deer from your neighbor. That if your neighbor is a quarter or a half a mile or 2 miles away and there's a food source there's cover, there's everything, you're probably not going to pull that deer out of there.
I agree and disagree because it depends on the time of year.
Okay, but I'm talking about right now.
Which is August 24th.
Right.
So, yes, you're not going to bring them anywhere.
Okay, so typically, I mean, understanding deer, bachelor groups, they're doing their thing. However, I just had a deer show up to one of the scrapes that I have that they're starting to. I mean, in the next 10 days, maybe 2 weeks, we're going to start to see velvet come off here in Iowa.
I just got a video last night.
Yeah,
Okay.
he does.
He's
got one
complete.
hardborn.
Doesn't even have a little bit on.
Right.
He's completely shedded.
Okay, but what a lot of people don't understand is that we used to think that took a long process, that it might take 4, 5, 6, 7 days for them to get the velvet off. They can do it in less than 24 hours.
I had
I think
pictures
it's
of him
like
the day
30
before.
minutes.
That's what I'm saying. They can do it in just like overnight. What I'm saying is if you saw them one day, the next day you see them, they could be completely out.
Yeah.
That's what I have on the camera.
Right.
Well, I think talk a little bit though on why. So right now you're not gonna. It doesn't matter what sense you use. You're not going to see the same amount of scrape action as you are October 20th.
Absolutely.
So why don't we discuss a little bit of why that is, and maybe some of those time periods where you are going to see scrape action increase, and why that's happening.
Okay. So right now, I do think that the reason that you see these deer scraping, and again, there's not a book. I mean, I've tried to read as much as I can and find everything. I know Easton's been doing the same thing. Everything that we are looking at when it comes to a wild animal has to be a theory, because they can't speak to us. They can't tell us exactly what or why they're doing things that they're doing. But this time of year, right now, there's not as much need for the communication as there is as they start to get further along. The need for communication becomes as the rut gets closer, we have to establish dominance. We have to see who's going to be number one in the pecking order, who's going to be number two. That goes both for the bucks and the does. Number two, not number two as in where they are in the pecking order, but the number two is now these bucks start to be interested at least in the females, and they need to keep track of what's going on there as well. Okay, so there's different things that start to come into play at different times. Look at the neck of a deer. I mean, you see this big, huge swollen neck in November. You don't see that in August and September.
Well, they're not traveling very far right now, so most of those deer, they know the other deer that are around.
Absolutely.
And they don't. There's not much to compete with right now, or reason to compete. When they're not during the rut, when there's does that aren't in heat, they are living basically. And when we're talking about their ranges aren't very far away, like during the summers and stuff, when they're just living, they don't have a reason. They know what the bucks are. They have a pretty good idea of a dominant buck opposed to a non-dominant buck, but they don't necessarily have a massive reason to prove it to another deer.
Yeah,
well, you don't really see them fighting. You don't see them making tons of scrapes. It's mainly just a kind of keeping everybody in the loop, I guess you could kind of say right now. And maybe if a buck starts to feel a little bit like another deer is kind of more dominant than him if he were to be a dominant one, but the scrapes ramp up, like you were saying, so much more because they have a reason to fight for something or to prove that they are the dominant buck.
Well, because the other thing that we've been able to witness as we've done this is not only this time of year is there still some scraping activity, is there still some marking of trees and things like that. Now, bucks are not rubbing trees right now.
Nope.
They're not going to until you get to the deer that you just got yesterday, until that velvet comes off. They're not going to. They know that antler is soft and that it's fragile, and they avoid any kind of interaction with it if they can. But what we also have seen is that they'll continue to scrape into January and February, even when they don't have antlers. They're still coming there. And that's where the scents really become, holy cow, not so much that we're using it or needing it then, but that's where you can really start to learn that the antler really doesn't mean near as much as what we thought. It's more about the glandular scents. And so we probably better kind of back up too and explain where and what the 5 glands are. There's more than 5, but the ones that we have.
Well, I think it's great we're going to get through it naturally, but I think we should talk to at least begin why, back to mock scrapes. We didn't even touch on it.
Well, let me ask you this.
You gave us the one example, but
why would it, with what you just stated, they kind of know each other, they know who's around, there's not necessarily need for dominance. Why would a deer hit a scrape at all right now?
Like I said, because they're basically
instinct.
Keeping, well, one could be instinct, but they're also keeping in touch with each other, kind of. It's like a text.
Yeah, it's like
it's like it's one certain, depending on what they're using, but some of them are like, here, Warren, here's my ID, here's who I am. Other times it's just like, hey, I'm just leaving this here to make sure, just to see who else is here, or, oh, hey, Phil was over here. And so I'm going to tell Phil that I'm here. Or, like I said, if they feel a little bit as though you're the dominant buck right now, we're in the middle. Okay. We're in the middle of if we're in the middle of summer though, and you're primarily a dominant buck for the past couple of years, or you're a more mature deer. If you have another deer a buck that is walking around, a younger buck like me, and making scrapes and things like that is not as dominant, you might not care all that much, but you're probably going to come up to it, make that scrape, just to let them know that, hey, you better be careful, kind of thing. And then they're going to be all making those scrapes left and right when it comes to be the right, when they have a reason to be dominant. Right now, they don't necessarily have one unless they have like that, like going in just to communicate with each other. It's not like they just go ghosting each other the whole entire year until they're ready to mate.
So your bucks that show up on trail camera at like 2 a.m., they're your salty bad boy bucks. They're texting the ladies at 2 a.m. You up?
Whatever.
We can't say what I want to say to that.
So what we're talking about is right now, it's not that what we're seeing, I think, as even it's surpassed what we thought we would see with our scents, with making mock scrapes at this time of year. I didn't think we would see the number of deer that we have seen hit. I mean, we've had one scrape that's had over 8 bucks.
14 the other day.
Okay. Here's what my point with the mock scrapes, though, because you guys are just attesting to why mock scrapes work, or why our scents are working in mock scrapes. And I'm going to attest to the fact that they have never worked for me until now. And why? Because when I've done them in the past, I don't know how many, I really didn't care about scrapes all that much. I knew that they used them. I knew them did it during the rut primarily, all sorts of little things, but I've tried the peeing in them. I've tried breaking a branch for them. I've put urines places, and I get some results every once in a while. It's never consistent. So my point with the mock scrapes is they're never going to work for somebody if, one, you're not putting them where there's deer, you're not using the right scents, and you're not using it somewhere where they can naturally use it. So mock scrapes don't work probably because you're not using them right or setting them up correctly. Once I started using our glandular scents and using them properly, I find where deer are at naturally, especially during the summer because they don't want to go anywhere. I find where they're traveling to and from, and I'm using the correct scents. That is the most natural message I can send to them. The synthetics and urine-based and everything does not carry as large of a message and as natural of a message as a glandular scent does.
Right.
So my point with that is mock scrapes, yeah, they aren't going to work if you don't know how to use it.
Well, one thing that you just said there, though, that we should point out, and that I think we want to clarify, you were like, I know what direction even that they're coming. One of the reasons that we know direction is because we're running a lot of video on these scrapes, so we can see the deer approach. You
got to know that before you even put that out there. You got to at least know where the deer's
You got to have an idea.
I might move cameras around, but I have a pretty good idea of where their bedding is and where they're going to food.
Absolutely.
And that's from scouting. That's
right.
just
that has nothing to do with
coming.
And that goes back to that the scrape is not magical. You cannot just walk out in the middle of the woods and say, okay, I know deer live here. I'm making a scrape here, and I'm going to make them come to this.
You got to be strategic.
Because even the best text message, if it goes out the wrong way or to the wrong people or it's in the wrong place, no one's going to answer it.
Mm-hmm. Well, because once I understood this, scrapes made a lot more sense to me and where I was seeing them geographically. So what do you have to have to send a text? You have to have
service.
Yes. What is service of the deer world?
I don't know. Please relate for me here.
Moisture.
Okay, that's fair.
See, which nobody else is going to think.
That's actually a really good connection.
Yes, you have to have. So I've found places where I'm like, I know there's a bunch of deer here. Gobbler knob, for instance. There should be a massive freaking scrape of gobbler knob. There's not. And the reason that there's not is because if you guys weren't able to gather, gobbler knob is on a knob. So it's like on top of a hill. And it's always dry.
And it's a round hill. Okay, so it goes left and right.
And there's been turkeys on it before. That's where it got
where they gobble sometimes.
Anyways,
on the knob.
It's dry, and so there's scents doesn't hold the moisture. It doesn't hold the scent, and so those deer don't make scrapes there. Or the other thing is you may see scrapes sometimes, and then you go and look at it, and you think, oh, that hasn't been hit. And they are getting hit, but the ground is dry, and so you can't actually see that it's being hit. So that's where I think that the most important thing, it doesn't matter what you're using or what you're putting on there if you're putting it in an area where there's not enough moisture to be able to hold that scent in the first place, or it's not going to last near as long.
It's not going to work as well.
Yeah, and I started thinking about like bottoms I see a bunch in river bottoms and creek bottoms and places, and then all of a sudden it made a lot more sense that there's that holds moisture.
Well, and that would kind of the same thing, agriculture edges, because whether they're irrigated, but they're going to have moisture. Those fields have been put there because they are going to grow,
and the plants are going to pull moisture.
Absolutely. So you tend to hold it there, and edges just love to be places that whitetails walk.
It's a travel area.
Yeah, so we want to be in a place where and I'll use the example. I just made a scrape today. I just put a new camera in. I'm looking for a particular deer that we haven't seen yet this year, and I feel like he'll walk this corn edge. I do feel like that by putting a scrape there, I'm not necessarily worried about him coming and hitting the scrape, but stopping long enough that I get video that I know he's there, that I don't just get a walk by and I can't tell. If I have it set on video, but if you had it on photo, a lot of times you can't tell.
Yep.
But I'm going to go ahead and take the time to make the scrape, because how many have we seen just this year alone of deer walking by and recognize our scrape and then turn and come to it?
Yeah.
I had a video the other day. I didn't think that they would even be able to smell it. She was running. Like, she starts the frame, is hauling. I don't know what she was running from. And all of a sudden you see her like stop in her tracks, turns, looks at the camera, puts her nose up to smell it, comes walking over to the scrape. And I just put that scrape there. And she was going to run right by. I couldn't believe it.
Right. So so you're saying something to them. I mean, and again, this goes to what we're doing is we're at this time of year, because they're not making as many scrapes. They're not working the ground really hard. The ground is hard, but we can start to see some of the deer. Now you're going to have to make a lot more scrapes, and you're going to have to be more strategic with them at this time of year, as opposed to a month from now when we get to September and these deer starting to actually, they're not breeding yet, but the bucks are starting to think about it. We're seeing bucks that are actually ducking their heads in the fields and starting to, and that's when you start to see they have community scrapes starting to be built. And then you can take our scents and come in and get these deer to come to those, get more deer to come to those, or activate some of the other deer by infiltrating what they're already doing.
See, I think that's great to find a scrape where it's at. If I can do my mock scrapes how I want them to, I'll start them right now, and they're going to be a community scrape by the time they start going. I don't need to waste my time finding them, because as long as I know where the deer are at, and if I do it properly, those deer are going to make that community scrape on their own after I start it for them.
Well, that's the thing, though, too, I think that is interesting, is you can make a timeline out of it. So, and we should do that this year just because it'd be cool. You can see scrapes that they start, I'd say September, the more I think about it, September's probably the most important time to have mock scrapes in areas that you really want to try to kill a deer, because that's when I think that you get a lot of those deer that you don't know, meaning that the deer that are moving from their summer range to their fall range. I think that happens sometime between September 15th and October 15th. And I think that, and the reason I think this, it just depends, but somewhere around that time frame, I think, is when those deer start moving to their fall ranges. And then is what I think happens when they get there. And where I'm getting this is from going back through, I can't remember why, I was looking at some trail camera videos the other day, and there was a ton of deer, and the very first pictures we had of them for that year in September hitting scrapes. And is what I think that is when they came back to their area, now they're letting everybody know, hey, what's up? I'm here. They're sending their text.
Especially when they're moving.
Right.
When they're going from summer to, because a lot of times, even if it's a dominant deer and he's not in his area where he normally, like where he is living during the rut or moving towards during the rut, he has no reason to claim it.
Right.
And he knows that.
But I think that then they're starting letting everybody know, and then you can watch those scrapes, the ones that they do on their own. October 1 gets quite a bit bigger. October 15th, big. October 25th through the 30th, probably as big as it's going to get. And that's right before the apex of going into the rut. They're the absolute most time that they're spending letting everybody know their dominance. They're all fired up. They're communicating with all those other deer.
And that's your best chance, honestly, to pick out a deer and kill that deer.
I agree.
I mean,
if you got him coming to a food source or something like that, but I think that's been my strategy
November
for the
is what you're
last.
saying,
But
correct?
before, because once the rut starts, once they full on There's does in heat. They will come back to that scrape, but it's going to be random. You'll never know when. They may come at 8 o'clock in the morning. They may come at 6 o'clock at night.
They got one scent on their mind at that time.
Right.
Estrus.
If at all.
That's all they smell it.
Once that starts, your scrapes pretty much drop off.
Correct.
They don't care. And until you get to the point of when that second rut starts kicking in again, like they've got through their first round of does, and that's when we're all seeing them move around a heck of a lot more. But they have more time to. Well, they're obviously still thinking about it, but they're moving around a lot more where they're not stuck with the doe.
The only thing is, I won't give up on scrapes when the rut's going really hard.
Oh,
if I got wind blowing in the right direction where I think that they can get to and from that scrape, because it gives me that what we're looking for at that point. Once they start breeding, when they come off of a doe and try to find another one, there's got to be some lag time there, depending on how many does are in your area. And during that time, if they swing by that scrape, that takes out the randomness of just sitting in the woods or sitting by the edge of whatever. I have a reason for them to want to come back here. And what we saw, Juice is a perfect example. When he was running the place, when he was in between does, he was at that scrape. And it didn't matter what time of day it was for 10 days there. I mean, he would swing in anytime and let everyone know, I'm still here. Don't mess with me. And then he'd move on.
His goal, though, also was to destroy every other buck within a freaking mile area. I admire his attitude because he just a train wrecker. You did not want to get in a fight with Juice.
No, he was a stud. So for those of you that don't know Juice was a 179 7/8.
He is so butthurt.
He was 1/8 of an inch away from making 180 as a 8 with two stickers.
Me to stretch the cable for him.
So anyhow, big deer, 237
Warren
pounds.
Warren is a very
stress.
fair person. He doesn't believe in cheating anything.
It's okay.
Okay. Contrary to our prior podcast.
So which do we like better? What is your guys?
Be cheating on some scrapes though.
What?
So I told Easton last night. I said he's putting all these scrapes out, and I was like, man, I just hope I catch him at this camera in time, And I said, I'm gonna know because I'm gonna have.
He's like, you should put a cell cam there. He's like, you're gonna have your big deer walk by, and you're not even gonna have any idea. I said, that's part of it. He goes, well, I'm gonna know, so I'm gonna have a dead deer. I don't care.
Yep.
So, which do you guys prefer? I think we should talk about. I
was here 20 minutes ago.
Do you prefer a mock scrape or finding a scrape that they're using? I love finding the scrapes that they're using. A lot of my mock scrapes are built back on top of a scrape that I've known that
that's still technically not
there.
A mock scrape. You're just doctoring up.
Yeah, I'm just starting it early, But it's a tried and true, and you can still see them sometimes just walking through the woods right now. Even as dry as it is, you can see places where there was a scrape here. A lot of times it's a licking branch that's left, or other times it's still the ground is pawed away. The grass doesn't even grow back there or something like that.
Yeah. I prefer both. I'm going to say why. The mock scrape I prefer because I put it where I want it.
Absolutely.
I put it whether it's in front of a camera, in front of a tree stand. I am controlling exactly where I want them at.
But we have a better way. In my opinion, we have a better way of even doing that.
We'll get to that.
Yeah, I was going to say it.
And for natural scrapes, unless I have a stand right there or something like that, I like them for cameras. Just because I know that they're naturally going to use it or something. And like what you said, I might just start it early, put my camera there, and I know they're going to be there. It's not a question. Mock scrapes I find more interesting, though, as far as doing it how I want, doing it properly, and getting them to do what I want them to do, where I want them to do it.
I will say this. I am a natural scrape guy, but I believe it could possibly change this year, and this is the reason. With the information that I know now about glands and about utilizing scrapes and everything else, I will have those places that I think that they're going to be. I don't think that a scrape on the edge of a field does you that much good when it comes to trying to kill a deer. I think that if you're going to try and kill a big mature deer, the scrapes that are in their bedrooms, in the bedding areas, or at least close, or in those transition areas, are the ones that are going to allow you to kill him. And the thing that I don't like about trying to find those natural scrapes is the only way you can do that is during the season, walking through the bedding areas, trying to find the big community scrape. And that kind of diminishes the whole purpose of me trying to not mess
Right.
with them, but there's no other way that you can find that scrape. And
Unless you make it.
that's where I'm going with this, is that if I can establish it in September and create that for them where I'm already making it where I know how to get into that bedding area, or I know how to access it, I know how to get it where I need to be able to hunt them there, then that is what I would prefer to do. That's what I want to do. So I'm going to try that this year because I do believe that that is the better way to be able to go about it. And I'll say that for two reasons. One, last year I had a scrape that the deer had made, and I had five or six bucks that were good deer, 140 plus inch deer, one or two 160 plus, that were hitting the scrape every single day. And then got to a point where I had like five that were hit. I had five the day before that all hit it at the same time within 2 hours during daylight. This was like October 17th or something. And I'd had deer there every single day. Somebody else walked through that bedding area, and I know this from a boot track that I cut and everything else. And then I did not have any of those bucks, not one, on camera for 5 days. For 5 days.
Didn't one of them come over to where I had a camera?
Yeah, but that was during the rut.
Oh, I thought that was like lined up. Right
Well,
there.
hold on.
But
Let's
my point with that is, so now if I was going through there trying to scout and find that scrape, it didn't, for 5 days, it doesn't do me any good, which a lot of times I think that your window
If not
is the
more,
20th through the 30th. You only have a 10-day window anyways. That could have been half of it. I don't want to run that risk if I can avoid it. And then the other one was bullwinkle. I got really lucky on bullwinkle where I was kind of half in the middle, halfway between the field and this timber finger, and then I saw him hit the scrape at 170 some yards, and I was able to move that. That one was the most ideal situation to kill him because it was close to his bedding area, but just far enough out of it that I could get to it without bumping him. And I wouldn't have known that one was there unless I saw him hit the scrape.
see, and I think I'm going to lean on the existing scrapes more so than I like making my own mock scrapes, but I really like finding their own and then just enhancing them and getting them going. And
I think though now, I think I'll be able to pick out those areas with what I understand now. Last year I couldn't have done this. I think what I understand now, I will be able to go into those areas and find where they would have pretty much where they probably would have started them themselves.
Right. And the reason that I would say that I is because one thing about it that I've learned in the last 10 years, before we even started messing with these scents, there are some scrapes every year. It's almost like a signpost rub. They're coming back there, and it's religious. And that's where I would caution guys walking the edge of a cornfield, edge of a bean field, and there's 25 scrapes. Great. There's deer there. There's bucks there. But picking out which one they're going to hit in a situation like that can be really tough. Finding the one that is saying something different that they're all going to come to, that's where, so is that a mock scrape? Am I just taking over and making a scrape? This is the one that I want them to use. My stand is close to this one. It's not, they got 25 choices.
I think you're still just doctoring it. You're not.
Well,
in my opinion, a mock scrape is where there is not a scrape. Has not been one. Probably won't be one, or there has a chance of one, but you're going to make sure that there's going to be one.
Right. No,
you're going to clear the ground out. You're going to break a limb for them. You're going to put scent there, and then you're going to get them using it.
And the question that I asked is, which do we prefer? And like I said, I prefer to take an already existing scrape and enhance it. And I'll use Juice again as an example. I should have killed him with Drew the day that when I made the first scrape on the east side of that field.
To play devil's advocate, though, is there a point in enhancing? Because if they're hitting it often enough, I mean, really, I think all you need to do is start it.
What I'm saying is you don't know. When you got 25 scrapes along a field edge or 10 or 15, you don't know which one they're coming to. And as far as I know, most people don't have 25 cameras to put on every one of them to see which one they're coming to.
But if they're already hitting that one scrape,
no, I'm saying they're hitting them all. I'm saying.
So I think I want to discuss that then too, because I have a question with that. Well, I guess it is a question. I don't know that anybody can answer it. I feel as though there's one place in particular I'm thinking of, west of your house a little ways that we used to hunt. We don't hunt there anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I have never seen the amount and the size of scrapes that was on that place anywhere else. You know what I'm talking about?
No. I know you can't say the name, but
Bittersweet.
Oh.
Duh.
Oh. Well, that was a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
I think I only hunted that place
a
like
tremendous
once.
amount of scrapes.
Do you remember the amount?
Yeah.
It was like like literally
Insane.
every 5 yards a scrape
And
that
that's
is the size of a dining room table. Was there more deer there? Are those deer just freaking rutted up and they're just like crackheads, just scrape, 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 scrape? Like what? Why? I've never ever seen anywhere else like that where there was so many and so big.
Theoretically,
Shorty has been similar on that east side.
It's
I've
still
seen it all the way down.
a lot, but not.
Well, it's also way smaller.
Yeah, but I mean,
mean-
that place was ridiculous on the mountain.
my
scrapes.
theory would be the soil. And from what I remember with bittersweet was, a lot of that
It's
was
really
like
good dark ground.
yeah, and grass.
But
like
why?
luscious grass?
Why
not like
make
your
so
shit-
many? Why not make one or two? Or,
They're
or
not
a
caring about
few?
one or two. You're getting one. If you think about how many acres was that? A couple hundred or something like that.
Yeah.
You have a couple hundred acres, and however many bucks live on that, and you're telling me that they're all gonna sit there and think, okay, I'm gonna go up. All of this land right here is great for me. Every bit of this, my scent is gonna stay behind. I'm gonna go check out with Phil and Bill and make sure that we're all using the same scrape. No, when everywhere.
But I
they-
have other places where they do that. Like there's definitely
because yeah,
focal
I know,
points.
I know, but look at those places and see. I don't. Now this is me speaking off of a theory, so I can't prove this. But if you take those places and look at the soil, and that's what I'm talking about. If that soil isn't as rich or isn't as moisturized, multiple different things that go into it to hold their scent longer. If those places don't have, like what you're talking, where there's not as many scrapes, if there's not as many, or there's not as good of soil in that for them to make a scrape, they're going to find the one or two areas that are good, and they're going to use those, and they're going to use them like no other. You take a bittersweet where it's all good, they're going to walk out into the edge of a field, and they're going to say, I'm marking this spot because it's mine. I'm not going to go find somewhere else, and I'm marking it here. And then another buck finds that, starts marking it there. Another buck walks out, I'm going to mark my stuff here because this is good. It's all an option. It's all good for them.
I think there's other factors. Deer density would be one.
I think that's got to be because otherwise that's just shooting off lots of random text.
No, but I mean, deer density is one. Number two, number of bucks. Buck to doe ratio there was really close to 1-to-1. I mean, lots of bucks,
Right.
whether they were all big or not. And then it was a naturally good area, both from the soil content that you're talking about, Easton, to the tree lines that ran along the edge, and it was a hellacious food source. I mean, it was the prime food source. So you were seeing a lot of nighttime activity because there was a lot of deer there. And so therefore, I think that you were in a high frequency area at the right time. I believe that can be a very tough place to hunt.
Oh yeah.
Very, very difficult because but not anymore. I do think that that's where our sense we can go in and start activating or reapplicating to one of those, pick out one of those you put your stand there and you say, this is the one I want everyone to start really feeling like they need to control. And it may take a little time, but over time, I think you force them to come. That's the one. Why does he keep showing up?
But that spot though too, that wouldn't help you kill a deer there because those deer weren't getting there till night anyways.
Possibly.
In that situation, but I think he's more referring to a spot where you know that they're at and they're making 25 different scrapes all along.
And being able to single one out. And whether you got to put a ground blind in there or a tree stand in there or whatever, as opposed to the exact opposite, I think it's fantastic when you find a place where there's no scrapes and then there's one. And whether it's small but there's none anywhere. Oh my gosh. There's only one place for these guys. For whatever reason, they have picked this spot. Now I can hopefully infiltrate that. Or like Easton's talking about, you come in and you say, I'm going to make it and it's going to be here. And you start applying our sense over it
so
and
why
over.
Don't you explain what that's doing then? Because you're stating then, right, that by us putting our sense in there, we're introducing a new deer or a different buck. Correct. That's going to make them feel the need to check that scrape and mark it because there's another deer there.
Well, because so that's where the different glands say different things. So for instance, I used to think, I can't speak for everyone else, but I can tell you that I would watch these videos that we would get from trail cameras when we just put a camera on a scrape, right? There's a scrape. Do we have a camera on it? No, let's put one on it. We didn't put anything in it. We didn't pee in it. We didn't dump water in it. We didn't put any kind of scent. And all of a sudden, Juice would show up and he's thrashing on this tree and everything. And I would look at it in amazement and go, holy cow, I hope I kill him. Then one day it just like all clicked. And I'm like, he's not just thrashing this tree. He's got some intention here. Look, he's putting the freaking limb in his eye. He's licking, he's got his nose and his mouth, and he's licking this limb, and yet that limb never breaks. They're pulling on it, they pull it through their mouth, but it doesn't break. They're not eating it. And then you watch them when they're especially making rubs, but they're doing it when they're making scrapes as well as their forehead. And all of a sudden it was like, why are they doing this? What are they saying? And so we began to really like look at our videos more closely and look at them more intently, watch these deer, look at what they're doing, look at how methodical they are to leaving their mark. Well, then Easton and I started doing some research on it. He's actually done more than I have, and found that some of these glands can tell them things as the health of a deer. They can tell whether another deer is healthy or whether that deer is sick. They can tell how old that deer is. They can tell where that deer falls in that hierarchy. Are they the dominant buck? Are they not so dominant? They get their age. It's like a calling card. It truly is like the text, like you sending a text to someone and say, hey, my name is David, and I'm 50-something years old, and I weigh 200 and some pounds, and I got green eyes, and this is what, and if you think you can take me, come on. I mean, that's basically what we're getting to here. And so
those does are so lucky that the bucks can't lie on there, because they would all their bios would totally be lying.
I'm a 220-inch deer, baby.
Yep. I'm a 215 typical, 200.
I'm related to the hole in the horn buck. So anyhow, what we started to find was that these glands were saying something where, not that urine doesn't work. Urine can work, I believe, but it's more specifically designed to track a deer during the peak of the rut, where you catch them. It's a pheromone based. It doesn't last very long, and we're trying to just get a buck that now he's in that mode where he needs to find that doe. We wanted something that was not that short term and that less specific. We wanted something we could communicate with them all the time, and these glands are doing that.
To answer your question, that was so terribly not answered.
That's not true.
Yes, it is true.
Okay.
I don't think he got a single answer. Anyways, my answer for that is that what I've talked to us about is that when deer are in a herd, I'm not saying like they're all out in the field, there's 100 of them there. I'm talking whatever their area is, whether there's 100 of them, 200 of them, they all know each other. They all know each other based off their interdigital, primarily, gland, which is
another gland.
Yep, which is in their hoof. And that gland is always being used, every single step. And they know each other based off of that gland by basically name. My point with that being is when there is a herd that they all know each other, 100, 200 deer, they all are like, okay, this is our community. Like when we walk into a small town school, you all know each other. It's the same concept. A new kid walks into school, everybody knows who that kid is, right? They're like, who's this? When you have scrapes of an entire herd, or all the deer in that area, they're making 15, 20 different scrapes. They all know who everybody is. They're all making either a scrape on top of another one, saying, hey, this is mine, making another scrape next to it, same reason, whatever it may be. But the moment we go put our scent on it, it's not a buck from there. It's not a buck from their herd. It's a buck they have no idea who it is. So to start off, when you have 25 scrapes, you put that on one, you're probably going to spike the interest in some more dominant deer. And they're going to come over to that, and they're going to be like, okay, who the heck is this? Because I don't know who this is. It's not a who's trying to be more dominant than me. It's going to be curiosity and to assert their dominance.
Okay, so let me ask you this question then. Theoretically, with what you just stated, could you have more inferior deer that are nervous about coming to a scrape?
Yes.
Okay.
And rubs.
So you could have a big deer that's doesn't have the attitude, and he could be afraid of the scrape.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that afraid would be the word I would use. I would just say
nervous.
You would avoid
he
it.
just doesn't. He's not into interaction of that's. He doesn't want to be involved, and he doesn't want to get into. He's more of a lover than a fighter.
Well, this is why we're the deer police, because I feel like deer like Juice. They're hitting like a scrape, and they're like, "Oh, Steve's injured," and they're going to find Steve.
Yeah.
Because they are going to just do everything they can to go obliterate Steve. And if I was a deer, I would do the same thing. But
cheating.
That's
but
probably what they're
You
doing.
are just a soul cheater in life.
No, I'm
That's what you
not.
are.
It's the hierarchy.
Every podcast would come to some point where you get an upper hand because somebody is or something can't do what you can do.
But
No,
I
that's
think
what Juice had to establish dominance, right?
well, then he had to go ape shit on a scrape after he lost one eye because he had to make sure that they knew it don't matter. Even with one eye, I'll whoop your ass.
He probably did that intentionally. He
Yeah.
probably poked his own eyeball out just to scare everybody.
I don't
Look at me.
You know, there's another deer out there still talking about this today. I almost had him. I got his eyeball out. You know, I'd like to know who took him on, but someone did, and he lost his eye.
That's the more scary part is after they still fighting without our eyeballs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That one I shot.
Like your blind buck.
He had a Sylvester Stallone Rocky story just without the cool ending for him.
He ended up dead.
But he freaking was trying to fight with no eyeballs.
He was full on blind.
His demeanor was insane.
Yeah, he was flat.
Because I do think they have different levels of aggressiveness. Because they're not all of them that are like that, where they're
We
ready
know
to
that
fight to
for
the
a
death.
fact. That's not a question. That is,
So-
we've watched it. We've watched small bucks kick out our biggest deer on our property. We've watched it happen multiple times.
But
Yeah.
so that's what we need to make sure that if people do understand that you go out and you make a mock scrape and you may come by there one day, and if you can glass that field, you may see a buck that you've not seen on camera standing there, and for the very reason he doesn't want to be a part of that.
You don't think inferior ones, though, would at least check a scrape? Like when they know there's not a buck right there?
I think
gonna
that's
go
the
in.
worst thing, because that interdigital gland, like Easton was saying, that says they're there. And if Juice is going to go find Steve and whoop him, last thing Steve wants to do is get anywhere near that place.
You think they're actually hunting them down sometimes, though? Or
No.
here
I
comes
think-
Steve by him in the bedding area, and he just cram.
I don't know. According to what you're saying, if you were a deer, that's what you'd do. But I don't think
I
that's
can
how they
see
operate.
Juice doing that.
I've
Well,
seen,
maybe.
but I have seen deer that have postured at other deer from 100 yards away. Nick and I were in a tree last year.
I'm just
And-
saying there's some deer that are psychos. Like, that they're
Absolutely.
just out there to destroy every buck they get a chance at.
Yeah, and they're usually
Those are the same ones that you can rattle in from 500 yards away.
multiple times.
Yes.
You touch the antlers, they come running, and when they don't find what's going on, they go look somewhere else, and then you hit them again, and here they come again.
Yes. It's just like it's just like bulls that you can't get to stop coming in.
Right.
You know, you hit one freaking alcohol and
All right,
With
so
what you're saying with that, though, just to clear it, I don't think that, because I've had people ask me this too, if your buck that you're trying to hunt, okay, so Dakin, when he was asking us, he has a specific buck. You know, he's a big deer. He was afraid that if you went and put in a certain, he's asking me about what glands were in our different scents, and I was telling him everything, and certain glands will portray dominance more than other glands will. Such as like buck junkie is going to be a more dominant one because it has a forehead and salivary, but forehead primarily is an extremely dominant gland that they use. He was worried that if he puts that in there, will it scare off his big deer, or will it, if he's not like a dominant deer in the area?
Right.
And I said no, and here's why I'd say no is because, one, you're asking if those deer have to come to that scrape and they're going to maybe check it out but not do anything about it. They don't have to be anywhere close to that scrape. So not saying that's going to bring them in, but the fact on it is that they can smell that, like a scrape, dang near half a mile away. So they don't need to be right next to it. So my point with that being is if he's...
You've looked like that's a statistic?
Mm-hmm,
A half a mile?
half a mile.
Holy crap.
So if... What?
no, I was going to say that's like bears finding food, you know,
So-
3-4 miles away.
My point with that, though, is you have a scrape, even if it's near where that deer's home is, he could be 200 yards away. And he can smell that, and if he doesn't want to play any part in it, he doesn't have to go play any part in it. Unless he somehow gets to the point where the wind is perfect and he comes running up on a scrape and he's like, ooh, I'm not a dominant buck, I'm not ready to do this, and runs away, that's about the only situation I'd say that you might mess up a dominant buck. And I don't think that's going to happen, because if they smell that from however far the distance is, all they have to do is avoid it. They don't have to go over to it. They don't have to leave any scent behind. They're just going to, I'm just staying here. I'm just not going to.
You don't ever think, though, that they may go into it, and maybe that's why maybe like a more inferior buck goes into a scrape and he just puts, I guess, what's a gland that's not as dominant?
Salivary or preorbital.
Just puts salivary or preorbital on it just to let someone know he's there, instead of, just because he's communicating with the other deer, but he's not trying to get his butt kicked. Because I mean, otherwise,
mean,
what
I
we're
guess
saying
they
is that
could
they
do
would
that.
have to be like targeting. Like other bucks are coming in and saying, "Okay,
The whole-
Steve said this," and I'm
Well,
gonna
we
go
got to
do
Here's
this.
the
remember too,
misconception,
but they're
though.
not just communicating to other bucks. They're also
it's does
communicating to does, and we have a
and
number of
fawns.
does that come in.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of times what you're seeing, maybe they're not inferior. They're inferior, but they're inferior because they're younger.
I'm just saying, all I'm trying to understand is, will an inferior buck avoid a scrape completely, or will he still hit scrapes as well? Because I think that they probably will.
I think they'll
They
hit
just
scrapes.
don't. They're just not going as aggressive or putting, as much dominance.
I can't
into
I
answer
it.
that
disagree.
100%, but
I,
I think
I
that-
don't know for sure, but I think that you can have a buck that will never come to a community scrape, but he'll stand no different than a chicken bird. But he'll stand over 50 yards away and make a scrape.
I was just going to say, I don't think it's necessarily about if they're going to make a scrape or not, because I think they're all going to make scrapes at some point. Depending on the scrape, if you have a super dominant buck in the area, I don't foresee why an inferior or non-dominant buck would try to come. If they're actually a scared buck, I don't know why they would care to risk anything to walk up to that scrape and do it. Like he said, I would more agree with the fact that they'll just make it on their own, because it's not as threatening.
Hence how you end up with a place like Bittersweet with a whole bunch of scrapes. Someone or someones, meaning multiple deer that felt like they were the dude or make it working on this one scrape, but the other ones are all going, I'm not going over there. I'm going to make a scrape, right? Because you'll see them sometimes just respond. You hit the antlers and they circle a little bit and they stop and they make a scrape. That's not a scrape that they come back to time and time again. They just made that in that was a reaction to what they wanted to let whoever it was know, I'm here and I do feel like that I have a part in this. I'm not sure
Kind of
who
like
I'm,
strutting.
yeah, I'm not sure who
They're
I'm
strutting
dealing
around.
with at this moment, but I'm not going to get out of my tree and go move over and put it on that scrape that I just watched that buck make. It's not going to do me any good. That doesn't really mean any. It was more importantly, I think, or more often, what we see is rubbing of a tree. They'll rub on a tree. That's their response to that. And so anyhow, I don't think that I feel like we're trying to give it a definitive answer and say this, every buck will do this, every buck will do this. And I don't think there is one. I think that the chances are that they could do this. We're hoping they're going to do this. We have more than likely they're going to do this. And now we have the ability to talk with them like we've never had before.
That's all I'm trying to say is if we're saying we're communicating with them, on what level are we communicating with them? And I personally believe that even inferior deer will still hit a scrape. I think that they're probably saying things that just aren't as aggressive.
There's got to be a happy medium there, because I think that
because otherwise you're talking about basically they're exiled.
No, because I agree with you in the fact of a little spike or a little basket rack is probably going to come up to a scrape because he doesn't give a crap. He's like, ooh, I'm just young dumb. But your other buck that's maybe 4 years old or something like that has gotten his butt kicked multiple times because he's tried to do it multiple times.
Yeah, but on October 1.
Is going to be a heck of a lot more
on October
skeptical.
1, is that as important? Because they're not necessarily all that. They may be starting to get a little bit fired up, but not very much.
I don't know. We've recorded some unbelievable fights in the first week of October. And the one I can think of is
September
you and Mom
25th.
at Shorty.
No, there was like youth season, September 15th, and there was bucks going at it.
But the fight that you and Mom recorded that day, that was the first week of October. It was like October 4th. And those two bucks went at it. And I believe that what you're seeing there is there's more of that dominance thing going on earlier than what we think.
I think they're establishing it the moment they shed their velvet.
As soon as the velvet comes off, I think everything's
establishing area, not necessarily breeding rights. Well, I guess it would be for breeding rights down the road, but they're established. This is my area.
Yeah. But I think that goes with the dominance thing. As far as they're kind of making a ranking. Once the velvet comes off is when it's kind of game time is starting, and we're all ready for it until we smell the first doe that's in heat. And that's when everybody's like, oh, here we go, we're ready. Okay, but before that happens, I think it is they shed their velvet. They know it's starting to become that time. They're starting. They don't need to go insane, but they're going to start seeing who's the top dog.
And what you see, I mean, you watching these fields all the time already. A lot of times, as soon as the one buck postures, everyone backs down. They already know who, he's already, whether it's his demeanor, whether it's his rack, whether it's, his size, his gait.
You think rack?
I think rack has nothing
I
to
think
do
it
with
has the least to do
Yeah, I don't
with.
think rack has anything to do with
I
it.
do too, because the most dominant deer that I've seen consistently have been 8-point bucks that don't score. They're not making it to your record books. I've seen that across the board from Kansas to Arkansas to Virginia, that they are just a normal average racked deer, but for whatever reason they get big. They grow size wise.
Body wise, you're saying.
Body wise, and they are so aggressive, just
Well, that's
ridiculously
probably why
aggressive.
their antlers aren't as big, because all their testosterone's going to their body growth, not
Maybe, but boy,
antlers.
they just can't control themselves.
Well,
But
I do think the rack configuration could help them some in a fight.
Help
oh,
'em
for
win.
help them. But I don't. What I'm getting at is, as soon as a deer sees another deer's rack, and I don't think it
yeah,
has.
no,
as,
I don't think that they're looking at that rack and they're getting any information. Are they
now,
from that
other
rack?
than they recognize a weak side, they will recognize if half that rack is gone. They know which side to come to, and you can stick a decoy out and watch it work.
That is true.
I'd be interested to see a study.
I don't
on
think
if they've
that's necessarily-
ever studied if deer pay any attention to it.
I don't think that has to do with the size, though. That's just a fact of they're
No, there have-
identifying a weakness.
There have been studies
Yeah,
done
that I could see.
where they taped deer antlers on. I can't remember who did the study, but they actually put the antlers on these deer to see how they reacted. They were not their own racks.
Well, that's not.
What is the point in that?
They were trying to see how much of an effect it had. I mean, these were pin raised deer, but like a big pin, from what I understand, like 100,000 acres or something like that. And they were trying to see
How does that do you any good?
they were trying to figure out, what did does pick out the bucks with the biggest racks? Do other bucks stay away from bucks with bigger racks and things like that, all based on antler? And I think I'd have to look it up and see where we can find it and see what their exact results. But I read some of the summaries of it, and what they found was that the antlers didn't play that big a role.
I just don't. I don't think they really could.
I don't think I necessarily need. Maybe it sounds arrogant,
All right,
but I don't
but-
think I need an experiment to tell me that. The antlers don't mean anything.
Well, they mean something, but they just don't mean as much as some of the other things.
I'm gonna
So,
try and find that study.
well, let's talk about the one, though, because we've talked about mock scrapes. I don't know. We don't call them mock rubs. We just talk about putting in our own rubs. And this is one that I've only been doing now for this will be the fourth year. And it flat works. It flat puts deer where you want them. And that's something that I think is a game changer. And I believe that we have introduced something that this is the first year that I will get to use it with that. Last year, what I was having to do was use preorbital. It's the only glandular sense that I could find on rub trees that I put in. This year, we're going to be able to put our Buck Junkie, which is a rub tree in with forehead and salivary gland scent on there.
Yeah, so you buy the scent and you don't get the rub tree with it.
You don't get the rub tree with it. Sorry, you're going to have to find
You
your
just
own.
made it sound like we put together a rub tree, forehead, and salivary
No,
scent.
I put together a combination that is deadly. You shot your deer 8 yards or 8 feet from the rub tree. If you hadn't killed him, he was going there.
I was actually thinking about that a little bit earlier. So for everybody out there, that is what we're doing is we're taking trees, right? So far, the best has been a pine tree, but that's
White
one thing.
pine in particular.
Yeah, we're going to try and test some more this year, just because it's been hard to find that many white pines in Iowa. So if anybody's listening that has a plethora of white pines,
Northeast
let us know.
Iowa, they're native there.
Yeah.
They grow there.
Well, anyways, we're then taking them into an area very similar to how we're placing scrapes, where there's a lot of deer. And then we're putting them somewhere where we think it's going to help us get a shot. And so really to narrow them down and put them into an exact spot.
Mm-hmm.
So what Dad's talking about is I shot my buck last year, and this is what we'll see, and I have to think about. My buck came from the east of me. There was 2 or 3 other bucks, and he was following a doe. And he was at coming right down the line, coming right to us. And I was like, this is going to be perfect. I'm going to smoke him at 20 yards. Well, he then turned and at 45 and through the timber. So I didn't want to shoot him that far in. There was just no shot through the timber. So I grunted at him, I snort wheezed at him, and did everything. He doesn't do anything. He's following this yearling doe. It's November 1st, I think. He runs off. He's still following her. I rattle at him. He doesn't do anything. Doesn't pay any attention, nothing. So hang up the rattling antlers. No big deal. I figured as long as that doe's not in heat, or even if she is, we got a good chance of killing him. He's not that far away. He's pretty close.
He's here. We've seen him.
Yeah, he's good chance he comes back by. Well, probably 3 or 4 minutes later, 2 bucks start fighting to the left of me, and they're like fighting hard. And I'm trying to see these bucks, and I catch a glimpse of something out of the corner of my eye, and here he comes on a dead sprint. So the whole time I'd assumed that the only thing that would make sense is that he was going to those 2 bucks fighting. But now that I think about it, maybe he was going to the rub post, because he did. Once he came right up the road. He stopped running, and then he just started walking, and he walked right up this road, and he walked right to this clear cut, and he was going to go, and you could tell he was going to hit the rub tree before going over to these other bucks, if that was what he was doing. So I guess either one, I just suck at rattling, and he didn't care about my rattling, but he did care about those bucks fighting. Or maybe there's a possibility that she wasn't in heat, and then he heard these other bucks fighting, and he needed to go and establish his dominance on the rub tree or something.
But
I don't know.
But the point is, you saw him twice. We only hunted that stand one day. You hunted it that day. That's it. That's the first time anyone had ever been in there. And in 2 hours, or because you shot him at like 8 o'clock in the morning.
8:45.
In 2 hours, you saw him within 40 yards of that rub tree.
Yep.
Second time you killed him.
Yep. And he was going to hit the rub tree.
And he was going to the rub tree, whether it was just, and I believe that is the response you get. And that tree was the answer that when 2 bucks are fighting, I can go over here and show my dominance. If they don't get it from that, then I'll go over and I'll put a whooping on someone. But then I had the encounter where I'm watching a buck that comes. A lot of times we'll put these rub trees next to like a big open area, particularly a food plot. I hate when I have we build our food plots fairly small and build them that way for a reason, so that when the deer come in, we can get a shot at them. But even then, sometimes they're 60, 50, 80, 100 yards away, and I couldn't, why could I make a buck come over here? And so we dropped a rub tree on the corner of a couple of them, and lo and behold, one of the very first times that I hunted, this one comes in, and he's coming to the food plot, but he swings over to the rub tree, and it was a buck I didn't end up shooting, but it was a 160-inch kind of deer, really mature deer, comes in, and he actually hits the rub tree. And at that point, I was like, holy cow, we're definitely on to something here. And I do believe that we're going to enhance that this year by being able to have that forehead gland on that tree.
I definitely think just giving yourself the ability to take all those areas where deer are going through, but they're not necessarily, you can't get them within. We have a couple spots I can think of where lots of deer come through, but getting them to 30 yards is really difficult. And there's not a funnel. There's nothing really that's super different that differentiates to get them to come to that exact spot. Where I do think that this is something early enough that you will be able to utilize to get them to come to one spot and get a shot.
Absolutely. And then the other one was the deer that Mom didn't shoot at the 80. I mean, he came right over to the rub tree as well, and numerous times. The other one is when you really want to get a good idea on the number of bucks you have in an area, or I feel like the rub tree worked even better. It's just more difficult to do. You can't go out there and throw. You can
actually go dig a hole.
Yeah, I mean, but
that sucks.
But you can go out and make a mock scrape, no big deal, pretty easily. Putting in a rub tree, you need to have some more understanding and things like that, because you're not going to tote
tree.
Well, you got to tote the tree, but I was thinking of whether you're using an auger type, like a handheld auger, or whether you're using clamps or whatever to dig a hole. You got to be, because our deer especially, we have to be able to get these trees pretty 18 deep. Inches to 24 inches. Otherwise, they're going to destroy it and knock it over. So, but rub trees in conjunction with what we call the buck junkie, I believe are going to take, from what I saw last year, I already knew my rub trees are definitely a new weapon in my arsenal. Adding that scent to those trees, I think, is going to be even one more step better.
I would agree with that.
So we're looking forward to doing that. And then, as Warren was mentioning, white pine has been one that we've used. We get a lot of questions on the type of tree. What we're looking for is a softwood tree, and we're looking for something that the scent is going to stick to. And so the next one I'm going to try is a Scotch pine. And then I have one other one, an Australian pine that someone's bringing me. So I'll be able to try a couple different ones to see. But for those of you that live in places where
Importing them.
well, but they're all over the East Coast. I mean, or back toward the east. But there are native white pines in Iowa. I found out that the northeast corner of Iowa's got all kinds of them.
Right.
So we're gonna have to start with our buddies up there to start cutting us some trees. And when we're talking trees, we're not talking the whole tree. We're talking just limbs off the tree.
That are the size of a small tree.
It is. The one I cut yesterday is probably
Yeah, that's my
10
point.
inches in diameter. But the nice thing is,
So yeah, we're still getting a tree.
well,
Just without the roots.
yeah, but you get one limb, and I was able to get 2 trees out of it. Because it's 20 feet long roughly or whatever. So, what else did we want to cover on these scrapes and scents and mock scrapes and rubs? And now I guess the other question is, I've not had much luck hunting rubs as far as sitting in a place and say, I'm just going to wait on a rub one time. And that is a different kind of rub, and that is signpost rubs. I have seen deer that go back and frequent those. But
We've watched one almost cut it in half.
Yeah, but
They all hit it so much.
exactly. But at the same time, it's not with the same consistency. I think had we put a camera on there, we wouldn't have seen.
I would agree with you.
That was the big 8 that you're talking
Yeah.
about, right? We wouldn't have seen the big 8 come to that tree as often as we'd find him come to the same scrape.
I agree.
But yet he did. We saw what, $2-3 that just in the
We
hour.
saw the big 8, the 11, and then some other
buck
too.
all hit the same tree.
Yeah.
And for people that don't understand what we're talking about when we talk about a signpost rub, we're talking about rubs that have been hit year after year, and they don't even look, in my opinion, they don't look like a regular rub. They're not the white shaved bark, all that. A lot of times
They're
they'll
very
look
smooth.
black and smooth because they've been worn down and then a lot of times they start to look like an hourglass because the deer are actually wearing away part of the tree in that area. And eventually they'll just knock it over or break it at that point. So those are some other things to keep in mind. Those are just some things that, being able to, I will do it. I mean, now, because the one buck that I killed off of a group of signpost rubs, the only thing I had was a preorbital spray. That was the only thing that was available at the time. Now I have the ability to go in there with the buck junkie and put something on there that is an actual forehead, because if you watch that buck, he was 100% forehead on that tree. He was making sure that everyone knew who it was and what he was doing.
I think when you start using that, and then y'all just stick around for the next invention I have, you'll be able to take a metal pole and put it in the ground and make them rub it.
A metal
That
pole.
is exaggerative, but I think with the next one we're working on, I think we'll be able to get them to hit just
about anything. All right, we'll see. All right, anything else that we want to add? So if you guys aren't using mock scrapes, if you don't think they work, I'm telling you, one of the things that Easton touched on a little bit that all of us carry when we're making mock scrapes is water. If you don't have the dark dirt, pour a gallon of water in there, soften that ground up. One thing you're going to find is after rainstorms and things like that, seems like bucks are hitting these scrapes. It's not that everything that was there is freshened again and it comes back. That's what we believe. So
That's one thing we should talk on real quick is when you piss in a scrape, everybody says, oh, I can just pee in a scrape. Why do I need to buy anything? Well, the reason that peeing in a scrape works is because you are putting moisture into that scrape and you're reactivating
what's already
all
there.
those scents that those deer have already put there. I don't see very many people making mock scrapes and then just pissing in them and deer hitting them because there's no scent there that's telling those deer to hit that.
Yeah, they may hit it out of curiosity one time, come over and like, what is that? But you won't get them to consistently come back there time and time and time again.
Right. Or you put it somewhere that a deer was going to make a scrape anyways.
Right.
Yep.
So, but that would be the one secret weapon is having water. But other than that, we've done extensive amounts of videos and tried to answer everything we can. We broke down all of our different scents so that you guys can pick through them and get the ones you want. And if you watch everything that we've got on our website and you still have questions, contact us. We answer everything ourselves. We'll be more than happy to walk you through what we think would work best. So just make sure you go. The best way to find the scents is Raised Hunting or Raised Outdoors shop, or you
Just
go to
raised.hunting.com and go to the scents.
Yeah.
You'll be able to find it all.
All right. Anything else? All right, guys. Well, thanks for watching this week or listening this week, or however you want to put it. Easton's going to do his normal wink at the camera, which means that we're done. So, and the next time we talk to you guys officially, hunting season will have started for some of us because we're leaving to go antelope hunting tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's time to break out the bow. I just need to find another shoulder to go with my bow. All right, guys. We'll see you next time. Thanks for listening.